In meeting with Saroj a few weeks ago to catch up, little did I know that she would uncover this fantastic story of generosity, effort, adventure, authenticity, and truly giving something back. Saroj's father-in-law wanted to turn some of Saroj's ideas of a holistic approach to developing village life into a practical undertaking. Her in-laws made that happen, and with the help of Welt Hunger Hilfe, a German NGO, and other partner NGOs such as CWS, they have created a fantastic model of possibilities. Yet a village is not a model. It is teeming with life, youth, ideas, excitement, and visions for what could be. And so Saroj promised to ask Phillippe, the project leader, if he would agree to doing a podcast with me to talk about this amazing journey. I am very happy to say that both Saroj and Phillippe were able to join me in talking about this project in a podcast stretched over 2 episodes. I'm extremely grateful for their time, and of course I'm excited to hear how this wonderful adventure develops. Two and a mic clocking out. Enjoy.
Dung weche pek kod welo mabiro etu under mic. Dung parodit kod jok mawuoye etu under mic. Seche tin sud buta wawinji etu under mic. Wola wachokre wabed piny bi wawinje ero chako moment ndi and a podcast makende.
I'm joined here today by 2 people, so for this episode it's going to be 3 and a mic. But thank you, Saroj, and thank you, Phillippe, for joining me. How are you both?
Very good, thank you.
Very good, very good. Just for people listening so that they can get a bit of a feel of how international the nature of this particular episode is. Saroj and I are both in Berlin, and Phillippe is in?
Delhi, New Delhi.
Wonderful, fantastic.
Living here since eight years.
Wow. Okay, great. Okay, so I mean, lots of background there that we can get into as well a bit later. But first of all, so this project that we are focusing on today, Saroj told me about when we met some weeks ago. Saroj, would you like to tell us what the project is about?
Yes, I can start how my story in this project started in the first, because the project is older than that for sure, or the thought at least. I have been thinking about NGOs and writing about them since a few years, and in the comfort of my couch, I was coming up with like, what could be better? Because I grew up in India, and poverty is something that I saw every day, and thinking like, okay, there's so many NGOs available. Why is there not so much impact as it should have been? There's more than 10 million NGOs registered, unregistered. So ideally, there should have been a bigger impact. And I was thinking and researching and started writing about how a holistic approach could have probably, according to me, of course, be better. So every NGO, an example would be if one NGO is going to support an education project in one of the village, creates a school, but doesn't take care of actual problem in the village, is hygiene, for example, then children are not going to go to that school because they will be sick. So this whole, and then the other way around as well. If you focus on one problem and you don't focus on the whole totality of what a place is going through, according to me, it wasn't sustainable. And that happened luckily that my in-laws, that are very generous people, very nice, wanted to support a cause. And said, have you heard about Welt Hunger Hilfe? And I was like, yes. And then I started researching Welt Hunger Hilfe. I got really impressed with what they do. And he wanted to support a project. We went and met Mr. Mogge in office and said we would like to support something. That's how we got in touch with Phillippe. And I talked about this whole holistic approach and we should do this. And until now, I was getting a bit of a negative, so to say, or a very, very careful reaction to, I don't know, we've done this, I think, in past and it hasn't worked. Phillippe was the only one who said, yes, we've done this in past, but I would love to learn from the mistakes because he loves the idea as well and he would like to support it. And that was the day I said, yes, we are going to do it. So my happiness was in the thing, okay, I had a theory, or it has been a theory, and I really like the theory. And there's someone to put it into practice, and I would love to see how it works out.
Yeah, and that's where Phillippe steps in. Yeah,
that's
Phillippe.
how we met, and it was really I wouldn't say a coincidence. Maybe it was meant to be. So
Maybe, yes.
so I'm
See, that's the
head.
Indian way.
Exactly. So I'm the head of program in India since 8 years, and I've been in South Asia for forever. I mean, 20 years. I started in Sri Lanka. I went to Nepal. I became the country director of my organization in Nepal. I built up the program. I was quite very often in touch with Bangladesh, where I supported the program development. And then I joined the Indian team here in Delhi, and they have a huge program focusing on food and nutrition security. My background is actually I'm a lawyer, so I studied law, but then I discovered my love for agriculture, especially for sustainable agriculture. So I could, I saw these beautiful farming systems in Nepal where, all the, elements of the farming systems are connected, and these farmers don't really require any external inputs and are living in harmony with nature, actually. And it was an eye opener also to have a more systemic approach, a more a systems approach towards development, and where I realized that if we really want to save our planet, we need decentralized small systems taking care of energy, of food, etc. And that's how I started, having a more integrated approach towards development. And when I joined India, there was a lot going on, and we really wanted to have a very integrated rural development program, which we those days called the Fight Hunger First initiative. The initiative was very complex. We tried to target all the sustainable development goals. It was a little bit like, I don't know if you heard about Jeffrey Sachs, the Millennium project, the village project he had, quite complex. And somehow it was not really scalable. So after a couple of pilots, we boiled it down to 5 major interventions. And that's how the nutrition smart community came out, which we are now implementing in India in 400 villages, and we scaled it to Nepal, to Bangladesh, and now recently, Saroj is pretty much aware of it, also to Africa. So we are now in Ethiopia, we are in Burundi, in Sierra Leone, and Malawi. So it's amazing. And then I got in touch with Saroj, and she was talking about this is the holistic approach, and we had a couple of email correspondence, and it clicked right away because she really had the same way of thinking, ideas, and we came up, why don't we create, at least we start in India with 2 model villages. I don't like the word too much, but incubation hubs, where villages basically showcase their integrated approach to the government, to other NGOs, to other stakeholders, and become a little bit the voice for a specific region, but also an innovation hub where we can showcase different new ideas, and where basically the villagers are driving the whole process, and it turned to be really, really powerful. And first of all, I mean, a lot of people were a bit skeptical in the beginning, and why these 2 villages, and now you're pumping a lot of money in, which we don't do. So it's really low, it's very cost effective and very low on inputs and resources. Basically, it's only facilitation and capacity building we do. But it's really amazing how these 2 villages really became a voice, let's call it like that, for the nutrition smart community and for their specific region. Yes, that's a little bit the background.
A fantastic background that it is as well. Yeah, Saroj, at any point you want to jump in, just jump in, and then I will try
Definitely.
to watch out for that. But there's lots of different points that you make there, which I kind of they set alarms going in my head, but positive alarms. So when you talk about integrated resources and the different stakeholders, it reminds me of this principle called IWRM, which is Integrated Water Resources Management. You're probably more familiar with that than I am, but where basically there's a body of water somewhere, and all of the different users are taking this water, but they're not necessarily working in collaboration with other water users. And obviously what happens is the river or lake either gets polluted or it's used up and it disappears. So there are lots of these actors that come in and try to manage that, to prolong it, to sustain it, and so on. And what you're doing, it seems, with the village is not only doing this with water, but with an entire society in a microcosm that is the village that you work with. Is that a fair sort of description?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's quite a good summary. I mean, our focus is food and nutrition. It's basically SDG 2, zero hunger, which is not so bad because there is a focus. We don't get lost in too many sectors. There is a little bit of danger. The good thing is that if you work on SDGs, you basically also address all the other SDGs more or less directly or indirectly. And so we were thinking, so what have been the most powerful or the most impactful intervention in the past, and it took us some time also looking into data, looking into evaluations. We had a consultant who looked into what we have done so far, and then we came up with basically 5 interventions. One is nutrition education, which is important. You cannot only, especially in India. I mean, India. Nutrition is a huge problem. I mean, there are still 200 million people who are basically suffering from hunger. Just imagine, we have over 800 million worldwide, and 200 of these people are living in India, with almost half of the children suffering from malnutrition. So it's a huge topic. So we had to go into education, into awareness. And we developed a very handy tool also for the government to teach communities, or I mean, educate, teach, counsel, but it's a participatory approach where communities are sitting together and they're going through a cycle of different meetings where they address different issues important to nutrition, childcare, hygiene, water, nutrition garden, the importance of the first 1,000 days, etc., etc. The second intervention is, of course, farming. That's of course crucial. It's a core. But also to look into how forest, wild foods, traditional food plays a role, and to work with farmer groups on in designing or redesigning more or less integrated systems, which have been existed before, but due to the green revolution in India, are not really present anymore. And I think a lot of, especially the young farmers who went into more monoculture using pesticides, hybrids, chemical fertilizers, have lost a little bit the old knowledge. The old farmers still know about it, but yes, the young farmers also with migration have lost, these practices. The third is and that where what you also mentioned is community planning, but we make it nutrition sensitive. That's what we call it. It's micro planning, where we really sit together with the communities and we look into what do you need in being nutrition smart and being nutrition sensitive. And it starts with water conversation. It continues with water and sanitation infrastructure, nutrition gardens, where the government will also jump in and fund different initiatives. So that has been quite powerful, because the process starts with identifying what do we actually have. Most of the time you go into the village and they look at you and say, we have nothing, please, support us. We are so poor. And then you look around and you see the forest, you see water bodies, you see a river, you see quite an interesting environment. And so you're asking, and once these people get into know or rediscover their own resources, they understand that a lot of things are actually possible without external inputs or people from outside having to step in. And the fifth one is, of course, to strengthen local institutions, local government institutions, but also sanitation committees, water committees, farmer producer organizations, and to strengthen them, that they are actually able then to also design these community plans, but also implement and monitoring them at the end.
It sounds comprehensive. I think.
But what I do like about
it sounds comprehensive.
Yeah, but it's not. So I do like this whole concept very much, because this is exactly confirming. So there was lots of issues with lots of NGOs in Africa that left the people or places project or let's call them villages, dependable on NGOs because they went there, did everything for them, and either when they exit, either they don't exit because when they exit, people don't know what to do anymore, and the government wasn't they had taken away the capacity from the government into NGOs, including people that were working for the government. They were working for the NGOs because they pay better salary, and that way you make them extremely dependable on the NGO. In this strategy, I really see it is about making people capable of earning their own money, understanding their environment, and adjusting themselves according to the environment, and then making the best out of it, including making the government capable of supporting the village. That I think that's the best sustainable way, according to me, and that's how it sounds very intricate, but it is actually very, very logical and sustainable.
Yes, we have these five elements, and we have boiled it further down, and we have produced manuals and guides and facilitation guides to make it also easy, not only for the villages, but also for the extension service, for the government to replicate our approach. Same goes for our sustainable integrated farming systems approach, which is based on agroecology, where we also have very clear facilitation manuals now in place, and we are slowly working with the government on integrating it into their extension, because they still have a very linear kind of old-fashioned approach towards agriculture. But things are happening now. And for me, the beauty of these two villages, which Saroj is supporting, is that people can really go, they see the complexity, but they also see that it's not rocket science. When we talk about it, it all sounds very overwhelming and theoretical, but once you're in the village and you see the meetings, you see the farmers, everything makes sense, and you see also the linkages quite well, people are then not so afraid anymore. And it's a little bit an eye-opener. And we are learning as well, and I'm learning every day because new things are coming up. And to have this focus on these villages is quite nice, because you go there, you follow up, we are reporting, or the village itself, youth groups are documenting the progress. So you learn, and youth, for example, was a new element which we have a bit neglected in the past in the framework of our larger program. And now through these model villages or incubation hubs, or however, we still don't really have a catchy name for it. We really see that, for example, youth should play a major role, and they are a driving force in supporting their own communities.
Yeah, definitely. I think in many cases and in many countries, I feel on the one hand, we have to empower our youth very much and support them as much as possible. On the other hand, I feel a little bit guilty, because in some cases we're making the mistakes and we're hoping they will solve some of the mistakes for us. And we're saying, please learn this. You're going to have to do this in the future. There's no water here, or no food there, and no internet, and so on. And we are putting in some ways a lot of pressure on the youth. But as you say, they are obviously the future, and that they need to know how best to adapt to developing situations. What I love is the environment in which they are developing their knowledge. When you've got principles such as participation, integration, interaction, these are mechanisms for working with people, for in some cases negotiating, but in other cases reaching compromises. And I think compromise and consideration are extremely important instigators of change, of sustainability, which modern society has perhaps forgotten about.
Yes, I mean, completely agree with you. I mean, one dimension, of course, in India, it's important. You have over 700,000 or maybe 1 million villages in India. So 70% of the people in India are still living in rural area. Even though you have a huge urbanization going on, you have these mega cities. As a youth, they are tending towards the big cities. That's the trend which is globally present everywhere. But we need to find solutions. And I think, the future in India lies in its villages. I mean, somehow the soul of India is rural. And I think we need to come back again to this old Gandhi way of thinking as well in building up rural societies which are resilient and also self-sustaining themselves somehow. And that's something good, and to really show these youth that staying in their own communities and not going to Dhaka or to Mumbai or to Delhi is an option. Yeah, and that what we do in capacitating them, we do vocational trainings with them, we mobilize them in leading the whole process, and we connect them, like you said. And that's very powerful. They are connected to Berlin. Yeah, they had, so we did a live online field visit
I was
where
thinking
they
about it
were
just now.
where they were suddenly connected to a broader, network, and we connect them to companies as well. We connect them to experts. Um, Visitors are coming now. Finally, they're also charging, by the way, for the visitors. So so many people are looking into these villages, are visiting these villages, and the youth basically they organize everything, including accommodation, and they're getting a little income out of it. That's quite promising.
That's what I like about this project. It's not the four what you call it, framework, the four areas of focus that you said. It is more than that, because it is also income generation. It is also, we had this meeting, very, very touching. We had there were children from the village that were there to talk to us with my in-laws in the Zoom call as well. And we asked them, what's the biggest problem in the village? And they said education. And this project supported them also with that. So it wasn't a part of the whole this structured thing, but that's the adaptability or agility of the project, that we say, okay, if the biggest problem is education, that it has to be supported. I was surprised that it was one school, primary school, until 5th grade, and there was one teacher who was running into every class teaching all the subjects. That's a problem that's difficult to solve. It's almost impossible, but Phillippe said, okay, we're going to put in some computers there, and children can then self-learn and have this access to to the world out there, and give them the support to be able to be futuristic or more prepared for the future with computers. That was really, really impressive.
Yeah, that's a nice example. I mean, first of all, most of the time people are not able to identify really the issues, and also they're not able to express it. And now with this kind of framework we have created, people are looking into what is really the issue. And yes, these children have expressed the problem of education. And then the thing is, okay, so what now? And then they're looking at you and said, yeah, but what now? You have to come up with something.
Yeah.
And then suddenly people are having idea. And in one village, there was this young guy who was well educated and who loves teaching. He's not a teacher, but who does a lot of, tutoring. And he became a driving force in voluntary getting into these classrooms and playing a leading role in further supporting the children. And then, yes, like you said, the computers came on board. We have online classes. We could mobilize also people willing to do online courses for them. And it's slowly happening. And it's really nice to see how they're just doing it without us. Yeah.
Yeah, it's also great to see that this sort of business mindedness which comes in. It's not only saying, yeah, we're going to take money from everyone, no, but knowing who to take money from. For example, I think that's a key element. On the one hand, you've got the charity, you've got the social work and the dedication and personal commitment. And on the other hand, you say, okay, I know these people can pay. We'll take something from them too.
Exactly. And one powerful tool was also the manifesto they have created. So before entering deep into community planning, they created a vision. How do we want our village to look like? And this manifesto is now available in a written format. It's hanging in the community center. And it's also a powerful tool to tell them, look, we don't want your houses, or we don't want a new road. That's what we actually want. And if you want to support us, please do that. And we will know also exactly how the support should look like. Yeah. and that's quite good.
Right, sounds fantastic. And how do you go about choosing the villages? Because this is, as you said, there are perhaps 1 million villages in India. You've managed to choose 2. I mean, that's a hell of a process, I guess.
So there are millions, but yes, we have basically 400 villages which we are supporting through the Nutrition Smart Community. And then, of course, we are working with partners, local partners who are very much rooted in the regions where we are implementing the program. And then we had a couple of criteria. One criteria, of course, was accessibility. Yeah? That the government officials, donors, stakeholders, visitors can come and don't really have to struggle too much. Otherwise, they will not come. That's how it is. Near road and etc. So these kind of logistics played a role. Then, of course, the willingness of the community and the willingness of community institution to become a role model or a demonstration hub or learning hub. That was important. And the third criteria, of course, we looked into villages where there is still a high prevalence of malnutrition. So we didn't want to shine and to have something already in place. So we really wanted to go through the whole process again and to see, based on a quite tough monitoring system, which we still, I think we are there yet, Saroj, know the history where we boiled it down to 10 indicators to show also the impact of what we do and to generate evidence. Yeah.
I think this project is a perfect example of how to implement all the sustainable areas that you can think about, inclusive stakeholder engagement and including the governance and all of that, but also investor demands. Because of course, if someone is investing in a project, they want to see results, they want to see impact, and they want to be, if it is someone like my father-in-law, they want to be, he's from the business world, he needs indicators and KPIs. So it was a bit more like, so show me, so what are you going to, how can I measure the impact? It was a bit of a challenge in the start, but then I think it was for good, because then we came up with, or your team came up with indicators that are measurable, which is extremely difficult when it is not only about producing a product. It is about involving people's engagement. It's not so quantifiable, right? We still managed to have indicators that are measurable. So yeah, that was extremely rewarding at the end of it to see, oh wow, now we can also measure something, and there's something for the investors as well in it, and not only for the project. Positive in both ways.
No, and that was also quite good for us to have a private donor on board. And I mean, NGOs, they used to still have this a little bit silo kind of a way of thinking and reaching out to the private sector, sometimes a problem, and we have problems to understand the private sector or specific donor requirements, and vice versa as well. So I think the Nutrition Smart Community, and that's also which I really enjoy, is slowly opening up. It's including diverse kind of people with different backgrounds, and everybody wants to help. I mean, everybody wants to do something good, but to provide a platform which is also not too complex, where everybody can contribute with expertise, also with, of course, with money, with knowledge. That's something we are still working on it, and we have now created a global platform, the Nutrition Smart Community platform, where we would like to integrate not only knowledge management and communication, documentation, and also, of course, showcasing the impact through a dashboard, which we have now created, but also maybe also to bring different people on board to contribute and to support one of these villages, and be part of the whole community. So that's something we have started now, and it's quite an amazing journey, I would say. Yeah.
Definitely. I think technology is such a good tool, a supporting tool, if you use it if to eradicate trust issues. So people want to do good, but they're like, oh, so where's my money going? I can't see it. And numbers can be decorated, of course. But if there is something to show, a dashboard, which everyone is really, it's common in the rest of the world, but in NGO, because it's difficult to calculate an impact, it's very difficult to create such a dashboard that also will be resonating with a person who does not live in that world that is developed, that is being helped. So I'm looking forward to that dashboard, by the way, Philip.
It's ready. It's ready. So
okay.
we are already a step further. So the dashboard has been tested in the 2 villages, by the way. We improved it. We have now these 10 indicators where everybody agreed upon. And now we are rolling it out, and we are also developing an application, a ComCare application, where the field staff is not only able to collect data in a more, user-friendly manner, I would say, but also where we can feed information. We can feed material into the app, which will help them to do community mobilization, to do trainings, capacity building, mentoring, where they have material, small movies ready. So that's the next step, which we are with Dimagi, a company specialized in developing these kind of apps. So that's also something nice. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Actually, that's a great place to take a break for part 1. And when we come back, then maybe we'll talk a bit more about the dashboard concept as well, that you've got, so that people can have a better understanding of it. Thank you very much for the first part, and speak to you in a bit.
Thank you.
Two and a mic.